Hey Internet, my name is Dr. Popular. Full disclosure, I'm not really a doctor and I'm not really popular. I'm a San Francisco based artist. I tend to specialize in making stuff on mobile phones, like making music, doing photography, stuff like that. And when I'm not actually making artistic projects, I tend to use my phone mostly to listen to music. So I'm really stoked that I was asked to be one of the Souvenirs ambassadors, and now I get to talk about my 10 favorite songs. That's a win. So two of the songs that I chose are very sample based, and they're very interesting electronic songs that really push sampling to the edge. Syphilis Bouncing Ball by Aphex Twin. The first time I heard it, I was just blown away, because up until that point I literally thought sampling was taking someone's like hook to their song and just looping it. And then you have this song by Aphex where it's just like a bouncing ball and just all the crazy stuff he does with a bouncing ball. And same thing with Prefuse 73's Pencils, Desks, Bottles. It's a really killer track that's got all these kind of familiar sounds to it. It's even got like a little cat meow in the background and some beatboxing, all the stuff that you can hear and you instantly, it sounds familiar. But he's doing it in this really glitchy electroacoustic kind of way. So yeah, those are two of my favorite like electronic songs out there. Speaking of Prefuse 73, on one of his first albums, he did a remix of Mike and Nine's Life Death. And it was a pretty dope track, but it was a little too busy. It wasn't my favorite track on the album. A couple years later, I heard the original click track version of Life Death with production by, I think, Daddy Kev. And this version was just really mellow, just like bass drum, hat, and snare. And you hear Micah just kind of do like an easy melodic rap, and then he double times it, and it just sounds very casual, like you can clearly understand everything he's saying. I think what really makes this song awesome is it's got this driving nature, but he's not really yelling, and the music isn't really telling you that it's supposed to be aggressive music. It's all just something kind of fluid. And there's these spaces where when he goes back to slow rap, he's got these moments where there's this breath, you know, these spaces between his words, and those are almost as important as what he's saying. At the very end of the song, there's this great turntable juggling, presumably by Daddy Kev, where throughout all the song you just got this bass, snare, and at the end you have this little piano roll being scratched in and kind of juggled on two turntables, and it's just really interesting. It's like the only change up in the music. It's sort of like a really subtle DJ solo or something, and it's just a perfect ending to the song. Bit Shifter is one of those guys in chip music. Well, first off, let me tell you what chip music is. Chip music is music made with Game Boys, Nintendos, Commodore 64s, just kind of vintage gaming equipment. And it's got a certain sound to it. I mean, you're using the same kind of sound chips, and it has this kind of just chippy sound. But sometimes artists like Bit Shifter come along, and you just think whatever they picked up they would have been good at. It's not the fact that it's made on a Game Boy that's interesting about Reformat the Planet. It's the fact that it's just a really killer song. It's kind of this anthemic song. It kind of goes beyond the barrier of just being a novelty song, you know, maybe with an interesting device, and it's just a good song. This whole album is probably one of my favorite albums of Bit Shifters, and I can't wait for his next one. So there are some songs that just have this opening note to them that just, I don't know, just the second you hear that first snippet of sound, not even the first riff, but just that first bit of sound, you're totally hooked. Bad as They Seem by Hayden is one of those, or Hayden, and Natural One by Folk Implosion. Bad as They Seem has this just super detuned guitar. I think it's down in G or F, or yeah, I'm not sure, but it's really detuned, and you can hear the strings slapping against the fretboard as he plays. It's just that opening note, wom wom wom, and just from that moment, like on to the rest of the song, it's just this heavy feeling song, so perfectly captured with that first note. Natural One, obviously that cool synth wobble that comes in at the beginning too, and it just kind of lays there for a second, and then you hear this really sloppy drum beat come on top of it and just loop. Another one of those songs that the second you hear it, you just kind of stop what you're doing and you just kind of let the music take you from that point on. Two of my favorite songs that just happen to have these great intros. Aesop Rock's Daylight is, in my mind, kind of one of the peaks of what Aesop Rock was trying to do. He always had this really interesting, unique voice that for some of my friends was a bit grating. others it was pretty easy to get into. You pair that with Blockhead, who did production on like half of his beats throughout all of his albums. You put that together with Blockhead, and you've got this very kind of accessible, really catchy music. And then you've got this interesting flavor on top of it with Aesop's voice and his delivery, what he's talking about. It's just a perfect combination, and that really comes together on Daylight. It's one of those songs that it's probably one of Blockhead's most accessible beats, and just the way it all comes together, it's perfect. I remember hearing this in a club once, and up until then I never really thought I'd even hear Aesop in a club. And I heard Daylight come on, and it was just perfect. And the crowd, I don't even know if they knew it before or whatever, but it was just perfect. It was the perfect song. I love it. Getz and Gilberto's Girl from Ipanema soundtrack was insane. It's one of my favorite albums, start to finish. I know Girl from Ipanema has this kind of elevator music kind of, or muzak kind of association to it, but the song is actually really incredible. The saxophone solo throughout it, the guitar playing, and especially Gilberto's really soft-spoken, not trying very hard vocals. That's what really pulls the song together. It's almost like she's whispering the song to you, and it's so perfect and so casual. It's just kind of the definition of cool, and it's a shame that it has this like elevator connotation to it, because the whole album's phenomenal, and I think a lot of people just write it off. Beastie Boys, off of one of my favorite albums of theirs, comes my favorite track of theirs, Sabotage. Of course, it's hard not to think about the song and kind of associate that killer Spike Jonze video, the kind of retro cop video, but the song itself is just amazing. It's just a really catchy riff. It kind of harkens back to the punk rock stuff they were doing early on, but I don't know, somehow they managed to pull off the rap rock thing in a successful way. And what's always kind of surprised me is they never continued doing that. They didn't just like go, well, we kind of figured out this formula, let's just keep doing this. They keep changing, and that's one of the cool things about the Beastie Boys is throughout their career they've kept kind of doing stuff, and whether or not you like it, at least you never feel ashamed for still listening to them. At least they're still doing new stuff, and it's still interesting, and they're not just kind of rehashing, you know, Fight for Your Right or something. The Limousines are a San Francisco-based band. They're an electronic duo, although now I think they might have a drummer and maybe a horn section and an orchestra. 3 or 4 years ago, I was on their MySpace page, and I heard this song, Very Busy People. It was the first song I heard by them, and it was just so perfect for me. It was a nerdy song, right? They're talking about like getting famous for playing video games and messing around with Photoshop and, you know, just hanging out with their friends. What I liked about it though was it was a sincere song. It wasn't like, let's do a song that's going to be funny and filled with Resident Evil references or whatever. Instead, they decided to just make a song that was very sincere and very real, and probably exactly what they spent their weekends doing. And now they're doing pretty well from what I hear. Their album's out, and they're every time I go to one of their shows, it's absolutely packed. And this song, you know, quite a few years later, is still probably the big crowd pleaser, and one of my favorite songs by them. So again, Dr. Popular, docpop.org is my blog, and you can find out about all the other stuff I do from there. Thanks to the Sound Souvenirs crew and to the other ambassadors who picked some really awesome songs. I've discovered actually a few songs from them, so cheers.